Thank you for joining us for Season 2. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star rating. If you missed our last episode or season, it's okay. Catch up when you can. Our goal is to make sure our conversations connect with as many people as possible. With that said, we will be launching a LinkedIn podcast series entitled Bigger Than You Think. Stay tuned and share with a friend. On this special episode, we chat with father and firefighter Kamal Phillips. Driven to serve, he runs towards danger in order to protect his community. Simply put, Kamal cares. Welcome to another episode of the Somebody's Son podcast, where biting your tongue is never allowed. Young men battle with the pressures of manhood every day. Each episode, we tackle topics that focus on worth, actions, and relationships. Our goal is simple: help men win the war with themselves.
But nah, man, for real, thank you for showing up, bro.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to it, honestly. I've seen what y'all been doing, and I mean, the atmosphere itself made me want to come. If I could just sit down with a few gentlemen like yourself, I don't know about this young guy right here.
Why you keep coming for me? Like it's more time than
I don't know, man, but look, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. I am.
And then, thus far, you've traveled the furthest.
Have I?
Where did you come from?
Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
You came all the way from the 7.5?
From the 7.5.
Where do you normally shoot?
So we've shot, man, we intentionally try to make sure that we shoot like in multiple different cities.
Uh-huh.
Season 1 was in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
The whole season. Season 2 will be, we want to go back to where we're from a little bit. So come back to Virginia, number 1. We're going Petersburg, Richmond, House on Market, of course.
Okay.
And then we probably either Atlanta and L.A. or Atlanta and Houston.
That'll be dope.
Yeah, man.
That's gonna be dope, man.
Yeah,
Much
man.
success. I hope for y'all, man.
Yeah,
Definitely.
man.
I appreciate it, man.
So just like, as a father, right? I know you're a father. I know Chris and Ali just quickly learned that you're a father. Like, father of a daughter, father of the son. Like, how is that dynamic? Like, being the male figure in their life, and how do you like parent differently? Because I would love to say I understand that I don't only have a son,
Right.
so I know I can speak to that. But like, how have you found having your daughter's your youngest, right?
Absolutely, yeah. She is my youngest. I think that going into it, fathers of daughters, you hear so much from your friends, you see so much in the media, and it almost instills fear before your child even gets here.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being a man yourself and coming up and seeing where you think you might have changed the upbringing of certain women or young ladies, if you will. But I think that once my daughter was here, I'm still learning. I'm not an expert by any means. And I think it's exciting. It's still a bit fearful. And it's very different than my son. My son was, I'm not going to call him an introvert. My son is a lot more reserved, especially at the age my daughter be 3 in August. My son was a lot more reserved. I would say he had more couth than my daughter. But my daughter is really making me work as far as attention, as far as discipline, as far as staying 2 steps ahead. My son, it was almost like he followed what I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was almost like all I had to do was be me, and his ability to mimic what I was doing, behavior-wise, emotional-wise, physicality, he just matched it. My daughter, I'm chasing her. You understand?
Yeah.
Like, emotionally, number one, the attention that she craves is a lot different than my son. My daughter needs to know that you are watching, needs to know that you are seeing every milestone, no matter how minute, is being not only watched, but praised.
At 3 years old.
At 2.5.
Wow.
The energy, I think, is different in a sense that, like, my son knew when to shut it down. You know what I mean? Like, whether it was his body, whether it was him reading, myself, his mother, my mother at the time when she was alive, he was just like, all right, I see they calming down now. Let me chill. My daughter is like, we at 100 all the time. And until I crash, which can be literally 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, she's just different, man. But I take every day, like I'm excited to come home to her to see what she's gonna ask me, what she's gonna say. Because my son only lived with me for like a year when he was 2. So I didn't have the 1 to 3-year-old that I'm dealing with my daughter now. And I'm still learning as a parent, not just a parent of a daughter, a parent in general, realizing how much patience is required. Because that 1 year, I literally, bro, I hesitate to say this because it's like, oh, what kind of father are you? But I would be so tired when I first started in the fire department that I would come home 7 o'clock in the morning. His mother would go to work and we would be sitting there. I would plan to go to the park and I would be sitting on the couch and I'd just fall asleep. Fall asleep, bro.
Overnight's real.
And 45 minutes would go by and I jump up because I'm like, I'm a father. He wasn't 2 yet. He was a year and maybe 9 months. And I jump up and my son, the G that he is sitting right where I left him. Every time. Wow. Now, of course, I had disputes about this with his mother, and I understand the level of like concern. But I was so exhausted when I first started in the fire department that it was like I couldn't do anything else. I mean, I was up 24 hours a day, and then I had to come home and be a parent. So I've created a bond and appreciation, respect for him, and he didn't know what he was doing, but he was doing me a favor by allowing me to get some rest to go into the next day or go into the day that we were already there. So they're very different. My daughter, she doesn't understand that. It's 100 miles an hour all the time, but she's beautiful. She's a blessing, man, and I'm done, by the way. Like I'm done. I think I got what every father or man wants is a son first as the protector. You know what I mean? The overseer of your younger sister being my daughter. So I'm good. And for anybody that's wondering, it's not happening no more. I think I'm getting snipped soon. So
there you go.
Do you find it difficult to be a disciplined parent?
Oh, absolutely. Because
Because you like staring at what you created. You know what I mean? It's like,
exactly.
I feel like it'd be easy to slip up and give them too much or, not teach things in a way where they have to understand it. And
right. You know what I did with my son? And it's crazy you say that. Last month, I was just talking to my son, just a random conversation. And I said, look, man, you about to be 13. You about to get an earful from me. Because I think at 13, him being 6th grade or going into 7th grade next year, he will be able to comprehend some of the life lessons, some of the things that I felt like it wasn't that it wasn't taught to me, but I feel like if it was shared earlier, I could have made some better choices.
Right.
I could have been a lot more focused. And I told him, I said, look, you probably not about to like me for these next 6 years, through your teenage years, but it's for your own good. Now with my daughter, I find that like you said, the disciplinarian, I'm weak when it comes to my daughter. I give in easily. And I think a lot of that has to do with me trying to mold her mental so that she understands that, yes, daddy will do for you. Daddy will bend for you. I don't want you to ever feel like I'm not on your side. You know what I mean? In the simplest way I can put that.
Right.
But I also want her to know that there is a place as far as like parent-child that she needs to understand, but she's not quite there yet. And I think sometimes my method of enforcing or being a disciplinarian is like, need some work because it's not being received well. She just doesn't understand yet.
Right.
So I think I'm gonna have to do the same thing, but because I believe women mature faster than men, I think I'll be able to have a more serious talk with her than I will with my son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You said you told your son he's about to be 13 or he just turned 13?
He'll be 13 this year on Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day. So you've already told him the next 6 years, my intensity is going to be more like turning it up a little bit.
Absolutely.
Last season, Chris talked about this idea of not being too hard on his son, and he didn't want to put too much weight on him.
Right.
Can you speak to, I feel like I know this answer, but maybe not specifically. Can you speak to why you feel like you have to dial it up for your son? And And if you weren't Black, do you think you would have to do the same thing?
I'll answer your second question first. Absolutely not. I don't think that if we were of any other race, that the intensity would have to be as high. To answer the first part of your question, first of all, I don't think it's being harsh or harder or being more strict. I think that information, whether it's being received, whether it's something that the receiver can lock into yet at all, whether they can even understand or comprehend what you're saying, I think that is always up there, because now I'm 35, I'll be 36 this year. And I have little like clips and glimpses of things my parents told me when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11 that made absolutely no sense at that age.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like that I haven't lost sight of what that does, or the power of just speaking things, hearing it. And a lot of times in my situation, repetitively, before that you grasp it. Yeah. And sometimes people are 40, 50 years old before they grasp what others look at as a certainty or common knowledge. But I think that with boys, again, I'm not trying to say that we are lesser, but I think boys take a lot more persistence in the lessons that you teach. And it goes hand in hand with the experiences that they're gonna endure themselves. But with my son, I feel like, again, I don't think I'm gonna be harsh. I don't think I'm going to be more stern or strict. I think I'm going to be informative. You know what I mean? Specifically as it relates to him being a Black man in America. I don't believe in naive individuals to a certain aspect. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's conducive for somebody's survival, a Black man's survival in America right now. And I don't think it will be for a very long time. Having the leisure of being naive.
I agree with you. I think it's preparation. You're not being hard on your kid. You have, if you truly want your son to be successful in this country, especially as a Black man, active fathers have to prepare them.
Right.
And part of that preparation means not being the most liked in the household.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And you know what? I have to pay homage to his mother, because we have always had this unspoken understanding that we are going to be as real as possible. Sometimes in the eyes of other parents, we're too real. We don't sugarcoat. We don't censor ourselves around him. And I think that it was a tightrope situation, because I still don't see how it has rubbed off on him negatively, because I watch from afar. I'm very observant, and she is as well. Because she's there a lot more often than I am. He lives with her. So she is like a hawk. She sees things that even I probably wouldn't have picked up on. So she's monitoring how our influence is affecting him and his behavior. The cliche, the common understanding for the longest is that if you do something, if you say something, your kids are going to do it. But I think if you do it with intent and explanation, then the likelihood of them following in your footsteps, may they be bad footsteps, if you want to talk about language and content and actions, I think that it's the clarity is there for a child that understands.
There's context to it.
Right, context. And I think that my son is going to be a brilliant young man. You know what I mean? He's going to need the push that I think all of us needed at certain points in our lives. I don't think any of us had the drive that we do now, especially with this man's comment earlier. He's trading Bitcoin. That was like awesome to me. I'm going home with that one. Whether or not I'm actively doing it, I'm going to use it. I'm just letting you know. But I think that every man finds his way, and I think the lessons along the way, the things that he heard repetitively, will always be there. And I think at the perfect time, they will come handy.
I think it's interesting that you asked him the question of, do you think if we were any other ethnicity, would it have to be that big of a deal? And I think the point that you bring up is, for us, it's more important for our parents, as opposed to the majority, right? We have to be prepared for the road and not the road prepared for us, right? Like, I think there's a difference in the way that we're raised versus the way that other people are raised. It's like, we have to be prepared for the road, right? As opposed to a lot of my friends who are in the majority, the road was prepared for them, right?
Look at police brutality, right? Like, so some of the stuff that we've seen on camera, I've seen some of my friends in the majority, because look, I don't agree all white people are racist. I don't agree all white people are mean. I don't agree with that at all. Like, I just have too much connectivity and proximity to phenomenal white people that I know that's not a case. I refuse to just write off an entire community or ethnicity. At the same time, I do recognize that some of the things we've seen on camera is that they get pulled over and it's like, yo, you work for me. They're yelling at the cop. Yeah. You work for me. And so to your point about the road being prepared for them, that cop even doesn't even respond the same way because he believes he works for them.
Right.
As opposed to if the kid looked like your son or looked like my son or even any one of us, my mom prepared me to make sure when I got pulled over that the cop had a good experience.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I never heard it put that.
And so it's my job to make sure he's comfortable. Now, if that means suing the police department later, she cool with that.
Right.
If that mean calling his supervisor later, she cool with that.
Right.
If it mean reaching out to elected officials, she cool with that. But in that moment, Melinda Knight has prepared Dante and Donnell to make sure every cop walks away thinking two things. Number one, he is safe. Number two, those night men are very respectful to people in uniform.
Right.
And that level of preparation is different.
That was very different.
That's a very different experience.
I think that goes hand in hand, though, to what Kamal is saying about being naive. You don't really have a choice. And I kind of agree with that. Like, you don't necessarily, to walk around and be naive, especially as a black man in America, is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? And how do we, it's an open question I have. I want to be a parent one day, but how do I flirt that line between informative and harsh? Because information, like you said, as boys, I know I had to get slapped on the wrist a whole lot of times. Like I got burned on the stove way more than I needed to know that the stove was hot, right? I'm struggling with myself as I prepare for the next phase in life, is finding out how do I stay on the informative side and not harsh, or how do I push without pushing too far, right? And the reason why that's a struggle for me is not having a father. I don't know that father-son bond. I don't really know what that looks like, right? So I don't know how far I can push before I would push my child away, right? But how do you teach someone not to be naive if you don't slap them on the wrist, for lack of better words, like to give them the real world scenario? Because I can say, yes, life is great. The world is amazing. It's, you have a lot of opportunity. You can be whatever you want to be, right? That's a route you can take. And I look at people, in the majority, and I see that they grow up and become, whatever they want to be, trading Bitcoin. I think you're in a good position for that, but I don't think a lot of kids, at least in this community, can actually identify with you, right? But that's a certain level of access that you have that others don't. But back to my original point, how do you kind of fight that naive feeling of the world is great, you can be what you want to be, and balance that with, you have to go outside and make sure you have a good experience with the cop. You have to be able to go to school and make sure that you work 10 times harder, or you get a job, you have to work 10 times harder for the same thing. Like, how do you apply that practically in real life when you have a child whose development, their growth is all dependent on what you give them and what you don't give them? That's my struggle coming into.
You want to show them reality, but you don't want them to crack too, right? Because that affects the relationship.
Exactly.
I think that the way that my parents were a bit juxtaposed. You know what I mean? My father was the straight to the point. Don't get me wrong. My mother was very straight to the point, but her straight to the point approach came with explanation. My father's didn't. I think that when I got the straightforward from my father, my mother was always close behind with the reinforcement of love, care, and explanation behind my father's lesson. And like you said, I didn't know that your father wasn't around. And I think that I've only known you for a short time, but I think you turned out awesome, because I'm sitting here. You're a part of it. My man Knight. this young man here.
See, that one didn't come. It didn't come with a shot. That was good. Right. This is a working relationship. It's building.
No, it's building. We definitely building. But it's all love and respect. You know what? I started. I can't stop. But to really like delve into it, you have to experience. I guess not only what I experienced. My father was a different type of guy. He was very informative. I wouldn't say harsh, because if he told us what not to do and we did it, he dealt with us. And then that was probably the last time that he was going to have to,
Understood.
You know what I mean? Just because of the consequences.
You said us. You had siblings?
I have a brother,
Okay.
younger brother, Rashad. And I think that he grasped how to navigate my parents' discipline better than I did, because he didn't get half of the punishment that I got. But
he also had you as an example, right?
Yeah.
right.
I'm
The
the eldest.
Younger siblings always have that blueprint.
That's not true.
Yes,
That's
it
not
is.
true. It's not true. I'm the youngest. I'm more so like on the same lines of what you've experienced, like with my parents. Yeah, my brother knows how to navigate it a little bit better, but I just think it's because of how I am.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
y'all got the same mom and dad?
Yeah, same mom and dad.
Okay.
They're married. We live in the same household, but
How far apart are y'all in age?
my brother is a year and a half older than me.
Oh, not far at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm 10 years older than my brother.
Well, then
so.
you would be the
that's
prodigy.
different.
You would be the prodigy. And, my respect is building for you with every second. But in most situations, the younger sibling has the advantage because he gets to see cause and effect. He gets to see, if this happens, this happens. If you do this, this happens.
There's a study that cements that just recently came out about athletes that played the same sport as their older sibling, and they talked about in most cases, not all, so there are prodigies out here, but in most cases, the younger sibling is better at the sport because they had the older sibling. So to your point, I think there is some learned behavior, if you will, and some advantages, some hidden advantages, if you will, from being the younger sibling most of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I definitely, I think I agree with that. If you look at Peyton and Eli,
Ball, brother.
Eli does have more rings, but those are questionable.
Against the same guy that would beat his brother in the AFC Championship.
Right.
Ridiculous.
And to think they weren't the best one.
But would he be as good as he was if his older brother? I mean, his dad was an NFL player too, right? But that raises the question of, if his brother wasn't as good as he would Eli have been
I think it's a certain level of push.
Right.
Venus is phenomenal on her own merit. What she's accomplished is unquestionably phenomenal, particularly in a sport that did not necessarily welcome as many African Americans. We're here in Petersburg, but not far in Richmond, Arthur Ashe, and what he was able to do and blaze the trail for people of color in tennis. But let's be very clear. Serena has gone on record saying there's benefits to her playing her older sister, who was that good, every day.
Oh, absolutely.
Her pickup game was Venus Williams.
If it's in the same fashion, if you ever hear Michael Jordan talk about his older brother, he said his older brother was the only person that could still to this day give him a run for his money. You understand? And if you look at the footage, his brother was 5'8".
Yeah.
Michael Jordan's brother's 5'8".
I didn't know he had a brother till just now.
Yeah, it was in The Last Dance. He was talking about where he developed his competitive nature from. And he's getting dogged by his brother.
His brother is 5'8".
Yeah. Travis Kelce said the same thing about his brother too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
JJ Watt and his brothers. Yeah,
so I think there's an advantage to it speaks to the development of whatever you're trying to pursue if your older sibling is involved in the same avenue of passion, or whatever you want to call it. But I think we were speaking about earlier when you said, how do you walk that line? I think it's with reinforcement of love, care, and support. I think that human beings are highly resilient to adversity.
Yeah.
And I think that you build that resilience to adversity with reinforcement of positivity, light, love, and care, and support. And I think that's what anybody wants as a young person in a development. I think that's what everybody wants. I want you to tell me what's to be expected. I may not want to hear it, but I want you to not coddle me, but I want you to tell me it's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going to endure that road. Like you said, that road
It's there already.
is not prepared for us. We have to prepare for the road.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome analogy.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, I think that it is a huge disparity in the upbringing of white kids and black kids. And I think that there's no reason for them to know, unless you watch a comedy special, that there is a difference in bringing up a black kid versus bringing up a white kid. There's lessons that have to be taught. So we're not naive.
Yeah.
And they may seem harsh. They may not be easily to grasp or conceive for a child, but you're putting it there. And I think that, especially in my line of work, when things hit the fan, it's unreal how things come back to you, like in the frontal lobe. Like, oh man, I remember this. Oh, and that's from training.
Yeah.
That's from repetition.
Yeah.
And what are the parents doing as we're being raised? Training,
same thing.
repetition.
I was gonna ask you about that.
That's a good point.
Your job is like one of the highest pressure, like, occupations, right? And do you feel like the skills that you're learning there are transferring? Like, have you applied in raising your kids?
Absolutely.
And because I'm sure also it's like, it can become, you mentioned that the hours are long, bro. Like, sometimes you'll be coming home late, and sometimes you'll be put in situations where, you know, it's the results are kind of hard to bear. Do they spill over into like the teaching, the parenting?
They have, they can, and unfortunately they will. Because it's hard to alleviate your experiences when you're trying to bring up someone that you have nothing but the like utmost love and care for. Like I want you to be prepared. I don't want any person that I even come in contact with, if I can, I'm gonna share information like, look, this is what you planning on doing. This is what you may encounter. This is how you can navigate. This is how you can circumvent. But I never want to be the person where you can look back on 5 years later and say, man, he was doing this and he didn't tell me anything. Especially my kids.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think that it has molded and it has assisted me with, because I was a child, I feel, when I joined the fire department. Like, seriously, mentally, in some aspects physically. But I think that from my experiences from the fire department, there's so much to be learned, and a lot of times it's not necessarily what people in general want to hear, like the reality of life, how delicate life is,
right?
How quickly things can change.
Yeah, normal people are protected from that, right?
Very much so, and especially our kids. So I do try to censor. I do with my son. You know what I mean? Like with stories that I see as lessons, but the level of like graphic nature of what I see, I try to dial it back, and I try to make it so that it's understandable, so that he can see that there are consequences to choices that he may not even understand yet. But again, I'm telling him now. I'm putting that in his mind now that this is possible. No, we are not invincible by any means or stretch of the imagination. And listen, it's hard to get some of the things out of your head, but I definitely don't utilize that aspect of my job to teach. I use the lessons that I think should have been learned by what I've seen to teach him. And I'll do the same with my daughter. But I think that being in the fire department has greatly, greatly assisted me in being a parent, because it molded me. It made me grow. It forced me to grow up.
Right.
Because at the same time I joined, I had my son. He was born literally the first year I joined. So I was doing both. So I hate to say it, my daughter's going to get a better version of me.
Because it's more developed now.
You understand what I'm saying?
When he was,
more developed, and I think she's going to require that attention, that experience, that knowledge and that know-how, or I guess nobody knows if they're a good parent until your child grows up and does a documentary when they're famous and says you were a good parent.
Wow.
But if you feel it in your heart and you see the success, the light, the love and the light in your child's eyes, I think that most parents will see, I did a decent job.
I was in a recent business meeting, and they basically said, come up with one word that describes you. Everybody had different words. But as we were like preparing for this, I tried to think, what would be one word to describe Kamal, right? And I think I found the word, and I think you kind of you're meeting your son where he's at without giving him the graphic, horrible nature of, you're teaching him the same lesson, but you're going about it, in my opinion, the same way your mother would.
Right.
And I think it's because you care.
Absolutely.
So if I had to say Kamal cares, and I personally have benefited from that. So I had a falling out with a frat brother who I love dearly. You didn't have to pull me to the side and give me game. Do you remember this? I remember exactly what you had on.
Eric's wedding.
Exactly what you had on, and you kicked me game. That brother does not know that. And I never tell him. All I know is you cared. You cared enough about my relationship with somebody else that you knew I cared about,
right,
that you kicked me that game. The second time you demonstrated you cared is when you let my son come to your firehouse and you gave him a tour. He's sliding down the pole. You put him on the fire engine, take him around the block.
Yeah.
To this day, my son talks about that. But what's even more impactful is my son was like, hey, I thought you said Mr. Kamal's dad works there. I was like, he does. His dad is a firefighter too. I didn't see him.
Right.
All the men my son saw at your firehouse were white.
Right.
And one of the things I noticed when we were getting the tour is they hold you in a high regard. And I don't think it's purely because of the successes of your father. I think it's because you care. One of the things I think is wrong in our community is we have to find ways to create proximity to people that are different from us.
Absolutely.
You have seized that opportunity in one of the approved, appreciated careers in this country, which is a first responder. After 9/11, if first responders didn't know this country cared about them, after 9/11, they know for sure now, right? Now we still need to figure out how to increase the pay and things of that nature. Right. But I saw the way that they responded to you, even in the way they interacted with my son, and you're leveraging that proximity to them to kick what you just said, which is share those little nuggets or give a little knowledge. Right. Tell me how you've seen, or if you've seen, maybe my read on things was completely off, but I don't think it is. How have you, why do you take on that responsibility to create proximity to people that's different from you? Or to demonstrate that level of care? Why do you do that? Do you think it's because your mom, your dad, or is it just the environment? Or do you think you can help people? What drives Kamal in doing that?
Coming up as a child, I always saw not only my mother, my father, my grandmother, everybody in my family were very caring and helpful people. And they had different ways of showing it, obviously. Mm-hmm. We all got family members that it's sometimes you're thinking what was that about? Mm-hmm. And it may take some time for you to understand why that family member reacted or, responded the way they did. But I think that the reason I do is because I do understand the level of responsibility that I have in the position and role that I have in my profession. Again, it's not many of us. And just to give y'all a statistic, out of 590 firefighters in NFR, Norfolk Fire Rescue, there are, I want to say 9 officers, which means lieutenant, captains, chiefs. The rest are white. So I made 9 last year.
Congratulations, bro.
Congratulations, man.
That's huge.
Almost 2 years ago as a lieutenant. And that if you look at the numbers, it's almost like what's going on. And now even the city manager is realizing that, look, there needs to be something that's going on. But not to speak too heavily about that, because again, with hard work, with just a level of work ethic, I think that it's achievable. But at the same time, when you talk about the proximity, I was thrusted into that. I a person that felt like it was a necessity for me to be around people that were unlike me. But as the years, it'll be 13 years, September. 13 years in an apartment, I see the advantages and almost the necessity to gravitate and put yourselves in situations, conversations, experience with other people because you evolve as a person. Like, I think that's the goal it should be the goal of every person on this earth is to evolve, to become a better version of yourself, to enlighten your conscience, to experience new things. And I don't think I would have experienced half of what I've experienced the last 13 years without being in close proximity to those who are different than me. And it did take a period of adjustment. That level of that you spoke on, I guess the camaraderie and how you saw they envisioned me during your visit, I think I had to work for that. I was not the Lieutenant Phillips that exists today back in 2008, 2009. I was a very standoffish, very kind of like not with the program, resistant individual.
What changed? How'd you cross that chasm? How'd you get from this point to where you are today? What changed?
The funny part is I was thinking about this on the way up because I knew he was going to ask that. Because I knew I was going to be brutally honest. But I think what changed is that it doesn't matter. For me, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I want to be the best. I want to be revered. I want to be respected. And I want people to know that in whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm going to try my best to excel. And I think that it took a while for me to not only have an appreciation for what I did, but to respect what I did and how I was viewed by the public. And it took time. It really did take time. And I'm going to tell you, slowly but surely, every encounter that I had with a random Norfolk citizen, usually an elderly Black man, and sometimes it was a nonverbal communication, when they saw me get off the truck, it was almost like their eyes was like, yes, look at this. And I'm telling you, it gives you goosebumps every time. To this day, it gives you goosebumps because it's like, what I see it as in their eyes, it was unimaginable when they were my age or around my age to even consider doing what I'm doing. It's almost like with every encounter, it was empowering. And I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to say anything, but that uniform that you spoke about previously. Yeah. It comes with such a high level of responsibility. And the most cliche phrase or statement that I can possibly say that I really do put a lot of marbles into was Peter Parker's Uncle Ben, when he said, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. And I think that over the 13 years and me doing what I'm doing, I have really found a new understanding for what that means. Because your son and probably 50 others that have come to the fire station, and I don't see many of the other firefighters host visitors or give tours like that. And the tours that I give to those that I know are not what we're supposed to do. But I don't. What's a fire station experience? Like when I grew up, we had fire station visits. That was just like we watched the firefighter put his clothes on. We got to walk around the truck. But I wanted them to get, what is it, a little bit more like what it's like. Walk around the station. Go down a pole. Don't just look at it, because what a kid want to do. He sees something, they want to do it. So let's do it.
That's just something.
Let's do it.
It's fun.
You see the fire truck drive by your car, your house every day. You probably never get to ride on another one again. Let's do it. Yeah. Right. And this is when I was a private. I had no rank. So bring him back, because
say no more. Say no more.
But I think that what I do, it definitely, I find pride in what I do. Some days it's harder than others, but I respect the fact that my father came before me, and then there's a lot of other brothers, Black men, who actually would have talks with me because they saw the potential in me. And potential, I'm one of the people that think that potential is just, that's a word. You know what I mean? Like I don't put too much in the potential unless you want to act upon it and develop it. But I think that there was a lot of Black men who saw something in me that I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to rise to that expectation. Yeah. So I still do that to this day. Anything that I do, especially in the fire department, I want to be looked at as like, he can do this job, and he's one of the best. No matter what you think, or you know, you may look at me and say, trust me, I'm nice. and I
don't think it's wrong with saying that either. It's funny because I feel like with my generation, you get demonized, or even like young people, you get demonized when you say that, like, I want to be like the best at something. You know what I mean? From a competitive aspect.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I don't think it's a problem to say that, man. And I agree with you. I think potential is I feel like it's just a word because everybody has potential, right?
Right.
So when you act on it, it's a lot different. And it takes a little bit to get people to the point where they can see that they can do big things, right?
Right.
And I think what I don't know what it is exactly that you experience. I think you just mentioned like going to places and seeing that people are like, wow, this was possible. Like, it's a black man. Personally, I'm from an area where it's not too many black people walking. Like, I mean, it's not that it's not too many black people, but they just not doing jobs like that. You know what I mean? So to hear that is it's phenomenal, man. And those little moments where you see that, like, you're making an impact on people really help you to like rise to the occasion, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't want to nobody wants to let anybody down. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I want that, whatever you have in your mind, you know, in some cases I do want to change what you have in your mind, but I'm not going to actively try to do that. Mm-hmm. But the people who already have that positivity in their mind, I want to maintain that. Yeah. I want to almost cultivate that, and I want to do a good job, period. I want your kids to look at me, especially some of the, you know, the communities in Norfolk. I don't know if you've ever been to Norfolk. Mm-hmm. Very much like Richmond. But you got a lot of youth in those areas who are not being told that they can do or be what they want to be, who do not see a lot or have not seen a lot of black people in my profession pull up on the scene of emergency. Or for that matter now, be in charge, be the guy in front.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing now.
Right. Absolutely.
Because we were just talking about this a little while ago, but the kids that I'm mentoring here in Richmond, like, they told me that they want to be a firefighter, but I think that's only because that's the job that they've seen, like, in their environment. Right. So, they're not saying like, I want to be the leader of the fire department, or they're not saying like, I want to be like a college graduate or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's the most important part of what you're doing. And I think that's why we need to be the ones who we want to make impact too, but we need to be the ones who are saying, I want to lead this now.
Yeah. Right. And I totally agree with you. I think what I love about what you're doing is you're also recognizing the responsibility. You use the Peter Parker line. I think it's a phenomenal line. It's timeless. Yeah. But like, what I love about it is, man, so we love to big up other brands. Like one of my favorite podcasts is I Am Athlete.
Love it.
Shout out to Brandon Marshall and those guys, which is why we were in the House of Athlete.
Love it.
But I use that to say this. We can't squander the opportunities we've been given. There was a recent video with, and they talk about it on the podcast as athletes not squandering the opportunity. There's a video you kicked me actually though, Bradley Bill. And he kicking that real dose of life to these young high school players, because basically he's saying it's only 400 of us in the league. Don't squander it. Yeah. You're 9 of 500 plus. Like, so the fact that you recognize not only am I going to be the best, but I'm not going to let other people down, you're not squandering that opportunity. And whether you're doing this intentionally or not, you're creating a pathway for others that look like you to reach that, where the numbers are no longer 9, they're 12 or 20. Or 25 or 50, simply by walking with a certain level of excellence. And so I appreciate you for doing that, because so many times we've seen people be given an opportunity and they squander it. And I'm like, bro, you just made it 10 times harder for the person that looked like you that's trying to get that spot or kick the door open for the rest of us. So I appreciate you doing that, man.
Right. And I think that's huge right there. That's huge. That is huge. Because, I mean, you can easily change someone's opinion of an entire ethnicity.
Yes.
Unfortunately, being a black man in America in a very niche position or role or profession.
Yeah.
Because there's so very few of you, the impression is going to last of the individual who effed up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yep.
And I think that has been a driving force with me, but also making my father and my mother proud, and also my kids. You know what I mean? I definitely want to be looked upon as somebody who, I didn't grow up playing with fire trucks at all. And I think this speaks to me wanting to be the best in whatever I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I'm doing, I want to be the best at. And again, I didn't play with fire trucks coming up. I didn't have any aspirations to be a firefighter. My father has had many careers. He's done so many things. He's an ultimate hustler. And he just landed in the fire department and stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
He's now the assistant fire marshal of Norfolk. So he is almost like a cop. But he is a cop. He investigates arson and things of that nature. But it was cool to be side by side with him for a little while before he made that advance, and making him proud. When I would see him from time to time, you know, he's not the type of person to tell you, you know what I mean? But you know your father, and other people will tell you. But it made me feel good. It definitely it still makes me feel good when other people can inform him of little accomplishments I've had in the profession that he's made a career out of for now 26 years. So
it's I don't know if you guys have questions. I feel like I don't want to take up all the time asking questions, but I feel like because I only see life right now in relation to my father from the son's perspective, right? I don't have kids.
Right.
So you kind of see both of it, right? Do you feel like, because you've mentioned your father a couple times now, do you feel like now you look at him in a different light now that you're older and you've worked with him? And because you were mentioning like some of the lessons that he was teaching you, they didn't stick when you were a kid,
right.
And then you had to mature to a point in time, or maybe an event that it just came back to you and you're like, this is what my father told me.
Right.
Like,
right.
Do you feel like now that you're older, you look at your father in a different light than when you were a kid?
Absolutely. I looked at my father like he was what he was when I was coming up. He was an ex-CEO from Rikers Island that did odd-end jobs that didn't take any mess. And I didn't see his vision. I didn't understand his approach. I didn't understand his strategy. And I sometimes question if he loved me. But now, absolutely, there has been a complete shift in how I see my father.
Do you accept it, or do you regret that when you were a kid you couldn't pick up on that?
No, I think that I completely accept it.
Okay.
I think I do. Because a lot of those lessons that were taught could have helped me in college.
Yeah.
I could have been way more successful in college. But I think that, again, like I said, it takes time for boys especially to go through what they're going to go through, to be slapped on the wrist, be knocked down, to be in situations that are not or maybe less desirable for where you see yourself in position in life. But I have a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation for him, not as much for his approach or strategy, but I understand it. But for him, absolutely. Absolutely.
Last question I want to ask you. Shout outs to your dad. He's phenomenal.
All right.
But last question for you. If you had to summarize your mom in one word, and I'm sure that's going to be a challenge. If you have to summarize your mom in one word, what would that word be and why? Especially as a father of a daughter now, like, it's clearly her influence on you and the way you're parenting. That's very clear in the way you parent your son and your daughter. But if you had to use one word to summarize your mom, what would that be and why?
Wow. First thing that popped in my head was intentional. She was intentional. Everything that she did, she said, she instilled was with intent. Intent that, again, you don't have any idea that is possibly life-changing, mind-altering, emotionally affecting, she was very intentional. And I think that she was unapologetically so, because her approach was unorthodox. But she always reinforced lessons and even her explosive times with love and support. She would light us up, me especially. And I would be crying and like, yo, what is wrong with this woman? And like, I know now, and I kind of knew then, that the 15 minutes that followed that discipline, she was literally in her, wherever she was, feeling the same way, like, Lord, I got to go in here and try to make good with my son.
Mm-hmm.
And she would do it every time. Wow. She would come in the room and I would be standoffish. Yeah. Very. Oh man, like, don't touch me. And she would come and love on me and hug me. And I kind of like, I learned that people do get angry for other reasons other than just to piss you off. Yeah. They get angry because they care. They get angry because they want better. They get angry because they support you. They get angry because they see that potential. Mm-hmm. But the potential is not what they want you to stop at. They want you to achieve.
They want you to work at it.
And my mother wanted me to achieve. And very quickly, I would not be in the fire department right now if it wasn't for my mother. I literally was on the first day of the academy and they let us go eat by ourselves for lunch. I guess they lose a percentage of people after the first spiel they go through. And what stuck in my mind was they said it was a paramilitary academy, which means that a lot of the daily routine is going to mirror a boot camp. Mm-hmm. And I was like anti-military from the get. My mother was as well. And I also did not take to authority well if it wasn't coming from Kim or Rock, my mother and my father. Mm-hmm. So as soon as they said that, like, I stopped listening to everything else that they were saying. Mm-hmm. The presentation was done for me. Mm-hmm. But I knew I had to, I went to lunch. I went to McDonald's on Granby Street right before the bridge. Got me a #1 Big Mac. And I said, I'm going to tell my mom I'm not doing this no more. Called her and I said, Ma. She said, what's going on? How's it going? She was, amped up, excited. I said, I'm not trying to do this. Why? What's wrong? It's a paramilitary academy. She said, what does that mean? I said, it's going to mirror a boot camp. And she said, man, I didn't know that. That's not what your father told us. I said, I know, so I'm not with it. She said, well, do me this favor. And she was sick at the time. She said, do me this favor. She said, do it for 5 days. Do it for 5 days. And I promise you on Friday, if you say you don't want to do it anymore, I'm fine with that. And we'll both break it to your father.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, that's fine. But you're going to be with me, right, when I tell Dad I don't want to do this? She was like, yeah, of course. Hung the phone up. And almost 13 years later, I'm still in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, bro.
Yeah.
Wow. That's powerful,
it's crazy,
man.
So I pay a lot of respect and homage to her, man, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing or making the impact I'm doing right now or have right now if it wasn't for her telling me to stick with it.
Yeah.
Stick with
That's
it.
Powerful, bro.
Irony, man.
Whew.
The irony. Bro, I appreciate you pulling up on us, man.
Thank you for having me, man.
For real.
Thank you for having me. All of y'all,
Thank you.
Man. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you.
This was good, man.
And homage to my mom, Kim Phillips.
Yeah.
Angel above, baby.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Somebody's Son podcast. We encourage you to share this episode with a friend. And remember, on this path called life, you are not alone. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
She like the way that I finessed it. She stared so long, she let me know that she invested. She too